I'm going to turn out just incredible story what's going on in China as it tries to tamp down on COVID outbreak. As the White House today marks the loss of 1 million lives to COVID here in the U.S. In Shanghai, many people have been essentially forbidden to leave their homes or their apartments for nearly 2 months. The anger and frustration has been captured in videos across the city. Within the past day, the Shanghai government has said 18.3 million residents are now allowed to go out of their neighborhood, though some have reported difficulties being able to actually do that. Another 5 million remain on lockdown. CNN's David Culver was stuck for weeks in Shanghai in his apartment in strict lockdowns, bringing us reporting on the frustrated residents who were banned from leaving their homes. David was finally able to leave this week. Here's the story of his journey out.
Leaving Shanghai today is a one-time, one-way journey. I've not had this much freedom in 50 days.
And here we go, off to the airport.
Heading out for the first time since mid-March, it all feels so strange.
The few people you see out and about, most of them are head to toe in hazmat suits. As you look on the streets, the ropes are still blocking off a lot of the sidewalks, stores, basically all closed.
With a government-permitted driver, we pass through checkpoints. Our documents thoroughly inspected, including a letter from the American Embassy. Many expats like me needing diplomatic letters just to leave our apartments. Once vibrant and rich with energy, Shanghai was forced into an induced coma. The rolling lockdowns began in mid-March, but by April, this city of more than 25 million people was under strict, harsh lockdown, most of us sealed inside our homes. Community COVID tests after test after test, and in between, at-home COVID tests.
I've done quite a few of these.
Early into the lockdown, I packed a go bag for me and for my dog. If I tested positive, I'd likely end up at a government isolation center like this, or worse, like this. Most of us would prefer just to recover in the privacy of our home, but in China's zero COVID world, that is not an option. Shocking scenes of people shouting, "We are starving, we are starving." Heartbreaking stories of people being rejected medical care, some of them later dying, all because hospital workers feared breaking unforgiving zero COVID protocols. Witnessing Shanghai's handling or mishandling reminded me of Wuhan. On January 21st, 2020, we traveled into the then epicenter of what was a mystery illness.
It's the wildlife and seafood market.
Still fresh in our minds, the perseverance of those in Wuhan who lived through the original lockdown. Some losing loved ones to COVID early on.
Just give me a second.
They risked their freedom to share with us their pain-filled stories, furious with their government for not doing more to stop the initial spread. Chinese officials maintain they were transparent from the start. And in recent days, President Xi Jinping has reaffirmed and praised his country's zero COVID efforts, vowing to fight any doubters and critics. Over the past 2 years, we've lived through China's military-like mobilization, rapidly building hospitals, mastering mass testing of tens of millions at one time, designing a sophisticated contact tracing system, essentially sealing off their borders to the outside world.
Sure, mic check 1, 2, 3.
Wanting to keep on the story, I've not left China since 2019, making this departure a long overdue homecoming visit. Shanghai's Pudong International Airport, once among the busiest in the world, is now a lonely experience. On the departures board, only 2 international flights slated to leave on this day. On the floor, sleeping bags and trash, where stranded travelers have camped out. They'd wait here for days or weeks for a flight out. Outside on the tarmac, strict COVID protocols and sanitation in place. Ground crews spraying each other with disinfectant. Boarding the near empty plane, it finally starts to feel real.
Enough for takeoff.
The disorder, despair, the chaos, the anger, the exhaustion, all of it feels so distant now. With a sigh of relief and a bit of survivor's guilt, leaving behind a country amidst almost unprecedented changes, I wonder if China's tightening zero COVID restrictions, coupled with rising tensions with the West, will keep its shuttered doors from ever reopening.
And remarkably, David Culver is with me here in New York. I can't believe what you have been through and what everyone... I just read in Shanghai now, It's almost getting worse that in some apartment buildings, if one person tests positive for COVID, the whole building has to go into quarantine, or the whole floor.
I'm on my neighborhood group chat still, and I'm seeing them as they're expressing their frustration. This is another new policy that has come into effect. It's not necessarily been written, but this is certainly what's being carried out. Yeah, if your neighbor gets it, and even if that neighbor is perhaps 3 floors up at this point,
And has not left their apartment in,
not left
in
their
2
apartment,
months.
and yeah, it's 60 plus days now. The entire building is being taken to.
And when you say taken to, I mean, they are literally kicking down the doors. Take a look at this video of them coming for one family.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Getting right in there. I mean, it's been likened to a scene out of The Shining.
I mean, this is like in those zombie films. I mean, your exit, that whole city is truly locked down.
What's interesting is you don't hear it here, but the translation of what this officer says is roughly, "This is not America. You can't have it the way you want. We have to enforce these policies that we're being told have to go into effect." And so they're doing it physically, and they're dragging people in if they have to, and bringing them into these isolation facilities for however long it takes for them to take.
But I mean, what's so insane? I kept thinking, okay, well, you're in your apartment, and then you take a test, and then you can go outside because you're negative. No, you're still locked in your apartment.
And what's changed now is the at-home PCR test or the antigen test you take. You have to take that, has to be negative. You take that to the community test, and you have to have a negative antigen test to then take the PCR test with the community. And there's just all these layers that they're adding, Anderson. It's baffling. I feel like you look at this and you say, where's the common sense of it all? And you struggle to find it because they're pushing.
What is the end point, and when does it end?
We don't know. I mean, that's where the hopelessness comes in too.
Because you're not testing to get out, you're just testing to be still locked in.
No, and you're nervous every time you test, by the way, because you don't know what's going to happen. But there is a sense of hopelessness, and it's dark for a lot of these people, and you just don't know where the light's going to come.
It's just unbelievable what you've been through, and so many people there. David Culver, thank you so
Good to
much.
be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Up next, something to make you just say, wow, the